Right, so now you can see we need to build the articles page. So let's go ahead and do that. If we go back in here, we now go into the pages. What I'm going to do is, first of all, delete this one because we're not using TypeScript in this build and we're not also using server-side rendering. So let's delete that page. Page 2 is just a second page that we get in the boilerplate. So let's delete that. So now we should only have the 404 page and the index page. So essentially the 404 page is what we will implement later on. So we'll fix that after. So all I want to do now is in pages, I want to create a new folder this time. And this folder is going to be called articles. And then in articles, what we want is we want two files in there. We want one for all of the articles and then one for a single article. So let's go ahead and check it out in our final project. So we need to also fix that 404 page error, so we'll fix that. But if we go into articles, this is the first page, which is /articles. And then let's click this blog here. And this is the individual article in here. So we need to fix that as well. So let's go ahead and fix the 404 issue. So in here, it's just saying we need to import the relevant layout file. So let's import that in and now save. And in articles, what we want to do is we want to see the articles page when we refresh. So let's go ahead and do that. So in articles, we have two files. The first one is quite simple. It is the index page. So to restart our server, in articles, let's create the index, which is all of them. So this is where we are going to show all of our Pokemon articles. And in here, we are just going to copy a page. So let's go ahead and copy the 404 page, paste that in here because we are using the layout and we are also using the head. So let's first of all import SEO, and this is going to be our Pokeblogs. Like so, we need to change this because this is going to be the blog page or article page. I'm just going to call it Pokeblogs. And we also need to import the layout. And now this will be the Pokeblogs H1. And we can also do home title, which is what we created for the styled component earlier on. Like so. So now if I save, it will rebuild the development bundle. And then we need to navigate to the home page. And then when we click through to the articles, you can see now it says Pokeblogs now instead. So that is the page being created. But what we essentially want is we want a list of articles here. So we want the Pokeblogs and then we want an article that we create. So what we need to do now is we need to create an article folder. So let's go ahead and create that. This is where we will have our articles. So similar to components, images, and pages, we need to create a new folder in here. This one is going to be called the articles. And as you would with all articles, we would render that out in Markdown format. And there's documentation in Gatsby about this. So if we search for Markdown or MDX in here, and you can see here, transform data to use MDX. So what we will also need to do is use a plugin once again. So if you don't know what MDX is, it's essentially an extension of Markdown that lets you include JSX in Markdown documents. So this is the guide if you want to read more on a Markdown and how it works. So we need to add this extension in, but what I'm going to do is bring in my two Markdown files. So let me just copy them and bring them in to here and paste it in. What I'm going to do is I've created a duplicate. So let me just replace. And in the Markdown file, what I've got is I've got this excerpt here. So this is the excerpt that we will be rendering out. This will be the slug that we append to the URL. We have a date and we also have the title in here. And the syntax is quite simple to understand. This stands for a H1 and these two hashtag tags stand for H2. And there's other sort of ones that you can look at. There is a Markdown cheat sheet on the Gatsby website that you can read up more on. But essentially the file names end in .mdx. So now that is our blogs all set. What we now need to do is we need to render the blogs. So the way we would do that is we need the MDX extension or the plugin. Then what we would do is query the data in our Gatsby GraphiQL here. So let's close this down and we should have an MDX file in here that we can query the data from. So that's what we need to do next. So if we go in Gatsby config.js in here, and all we want to do is copy what we have done with the images, like so. So let's copy this and then paste it in here. So we're using Gatsby source file system, but this time what we are going to do is the articles, and then instead of slash source slash images, it'll be source slash articles like so. So then this will read this articles folder here, and then we can then query that data on the articles page. There is one more step we need to do, which is install a plugin. So that is Gatsby plugin MDX. So again, if we go into these docs over here, we need to go back, and it is this plugin we need here, Gatsby plugin MDX. So let's just copy this, and we just need to install it. We've already added the relevant section in the Gatsby config.js. So all we need to do is install this, and then it will look for our markdown files, and then we will then be able to query that in our graphical instance. So let's paste this in and install Gatsby plugin MDX. Then I also need to add it in here, and you can also clean this up so you can have all of the objects in one section, and then I can bring these and add these in at the top. And now if I save all and then run the app again, so npm start, what I should now see is the MDX extension in the Gatsby graphical instance. So let me go into the graphical instance over here, and now I just need to wait for the site to build. And now if we refresh and check the file structure now, and you can see here this has been added, which is all MDX. So I want to search for all MDX, and the query this time will be made on the articles page. So if I go into all MDX, then I go into the nodes, then I want to go into the front matter, and in the front matter I can get the date, the slug, and the title. The date, what I want to do with the date is format the string, so I want it to be month, 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 so 4 months space date, and then comma, year, 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 so like so. So now if I play, now you can see this is the same structure as what we have here, which is essentially the title, the slug, and the date, as you can see there. So now what I want to do is I want to copy this query over here, and then I want to render the data out on the articles page. So let's go in here, back in our project, and then in our articles, what I want to do is do a query. And this time, again, we need parentheses, and then we want to return like so. So then now, before the return, we can paste in the query. And this time, because it's on the page that we are querying, we're not using use static query. We're just going to be doing a normal query. So it's export const of query, and then we're wrapping it in GraphQL like so, and then we also closing it with the template literals like that. And then what I also want to do is import GraphQL from Gatsby, and let's move this out of the functional component. So now if I save, what will now happen is this query here will become available as props in the Pokeblogs function. So we can destructure the data now in here. And what I also want to do is give this a type. So this is react.fc, and this functional component will be the Pokeblogs props, which we need to define. So what we can do is we can do article types or create types. Let's just create them in here. So the folder is articles.ts, and I want to export this type. So export type of Pokeblogs props, and the props essentially are the data that we are getting. So let me just quickly import this. And what we will need to do now is check what is coming back from the data. So let's console log the data that we are receiving from the props from this query. And then this query can be whatever you want to name it as. And in this case, it is essentially Pokeblogs, like so. And one more little thing that I want to do is I want to order it and sort it out by the date of descending. So I'm just going to bring that in as well. So it's showing the latest one all the time. So now all I want to do is in here in our browser, let's inspect and see what data is being passed in to the props. So if we refresh the page, so now you can see here data is being passed in. So Again, you can see the query as all MDX, which is 2 nodes because we have 2 articles that we created. They both have front matter. So in the front matter, they have the date, the slug, and the title. So that seems correct. What I want to do now is essentially copy this structure and then create a type for it. So I've already done that. It's a little messy, but let's go ahead and add this in. So in articles.ts, paste this in. And what you should do is follow correct guidelines and practices and solid principles. You will then extract these into their own separate types in TypeScript. So I'm just going to leave it as it is because that is not what we are covering in this project, but you should do that if you have more time. So now Pokeblog's props is being received correctly. What we now need to do is render out all the data onto the page like we are doing in the final build. So let's keep the home title in there. What I'm going to do as well is destructure the data. So I want the nodes here like so. So let's delete this. And I'm destructuring the data. So I want access to the nodes and then I'm going to map over them. So essentially we're going to map over the nodes and render out an article which I need to create. So let's go ahead and create this, which is a style. So again, I can create a style file in here. And this is article page styles.ts. And this is a styled component. So style.article, it has a border getting from the theme and then a border radius and so on. So all I now need to do is import this in and also import link from Gatsby, because what we are going to do is we're going to link this to a URL. So this URL is coming from the slug that we are getting from the front matter within the node. So for each article, we will link out to there. That's on the node.frontmatter.slug. We have a posted section and then we have the excerpt. So all of this is coming from this section here at the top, which is what we referenced within these lines over here. So that's the excerpt. So now if I save all and go into the browser, you can now see that this is being rendered correctly. So the only thing missing is the excerpt. So all we need to do is in our graphical instance in here, if we do control space, we don't have the excerpt. So we need to add that in. So let's add that in here because the excerpt is important. So now let's play that. And now you can see the excerpts coming through. So it's essentially the first part of the article. So let's go ahead and add that in the query. So at the top here, we just need to add the excerpt and paste and now save. And now you can see here, we have the excerpt also. So that is how you fetch all the blogs on one single page. Now what we will do next is create dynamic pages. So if we go into here, essentially we should be able to click through to this page here. So the top water type Pokemon and see the entire blog. At the minute, this page doesn't exist. So that's what we'll be doing next.